We are celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States. And one of the things we do here on the channel is focus on food. How is food similar or different than what it was 250 years ago? We have done an amazing number of dishes, many of them very similar to what we eat today. There are some big differences and big similarities. Our ingredients are very, well, it's almost like they come out of the factory compared to what it was 250 years ago. But probably an even bigger difference is the technique and the equipment that we have today. We cook with modern ovens and microwave ovens and equipment galore. We have kitchens full of equipment versus what was happening 250 years ago. Almost everything was cooked basically over an open fire like a campfire. And their equipment is so very interesting and very, very primitive, and yet they could do amazing things. Today we'll be cooking with some of that very primitive equipment. We'll be focusing on the lowly skewer and how we can do some amazing things with it. Skewers are used for cooking for a lot of different things. There are basically a tiny little spit. So instead of having some giant piece of equipment, if we're cooking some small item, especially small birds, then skewers come into vogue here. We really want to use them for small items. They would be used also for things like kebabs. And we even see references to that in the English cookery, but sometimes they use that word, other times they will just put small items on a skewer and cook it over a fire using it as a tiny spit. And they will even put different things on there at a time to make a various dish. One kind of meat, another kind of meat, maybe even put a vegetable in there. And then at times we'll even see them use a skewer and put those items on there, bread it, and then fry it on the skewer, which sounds great. We are going to be working with a small bird today. Now, small birds in the 18th century, they used lots of different kinds. They would have quail and pigeon, and they would cook things like songbirds and larks. I'm not even sure that they were very popular in North America, but you see them in the English cookery. We have a couple of Cornish game hens. And this is kind of interesting because a Cornish game hen, of course, isn't a game hen at all. It is just a very, very young chicken. It's just a regular meat bird that they butchered at, say, 3 or 4 weeks instead of at a much later time period when it's a standard chicken that we might find in the grocery store. They're trying to emulate the idea of a small game bird, I guess. It's a fun term. In the 18th century, I did find one term where I think they're referring to almost the same thing, and they call it a peeper, a chicken peeper, which means a very, very young chicken. We'll try using these skewers in a couple of different senses. They were meant to hold things onto a spit. Other times you might take a series of birds, put them onto a skewer and tie the skewer onto a spit. And then you would have like multiple ones on there. So you could have a whole series of birds on one spit. They're very easy to use. And in the time period, the references in the cookbooks usually talked about them being made out of metal, sometimes even silver. So if you wanted something that didn't react with your food very much, they would use silver skewers. I don't think anybody's going to use a silver skewer today, or wooden skewers. And in our case, we're using little iron skewers. The skewers do a couple of different things. They hold the bird or the meat together, whatever it is, they kind of pin it together. And another thing they do is they bring the heat into the middle of the meat, usually on the dish. So this skewer will heat up and it'll transfer that heat into the middle. And it also helps hold it onto the spit so that the meat doesn't rotate around it. That's one of the bigger problems. If you don't get the meat that you're putting onto your spit in the very center, if you rotate it, the meat just stays where it wants to and you can't get it to rotate the whole piece around. The skewer will slide up by the square of the spit and rotate with it and hold the meat together. This recipe is out of The Art of Cookery, Hand and Glass, the most popular English cookery book of that time period. And this recipe is called To Roast Ox Palates. And we're not going to be using any ox palates today. That's the piece of meat from the roof of the mouth. Don't ask me how you even get those. It's not a piece of meat that we work with today. But The rest of the recipe is very useful. Having boiled your palates tender, blanch them, cut them into slices 2 inches long, lard half of them with bacon. Have 2 or 3 pigeons or chicken peepers. Draw them, truss them, fill them with forcemeat, think sausage. Let half of them be nicely larded, spit them on a bird spit, and do them like this: a bird, a palate, a sage leaf, a piece of bacon, and so on. And then they go on to talk about other pieces here. They make a very, very complicated dish. Don't worry, there is nutmeg mentioned later on. We're not actually going to be using that. Today we're just going to be roasting a couple of these chicken peepers. And I'm going to go ahead and lard one of them. We are definitely not going to fill them with the forcemeat like was suggested here. To get the forcemeat, basically as sausage, cooked into the center of this bird is actually very difficult. It takes a long, long time. And the rest of the bird will cook fairly rapidly. So let's go ahead and get these birds on the spit, and then we'll start to use these skewers. Now, there aren't any specific instructions about what's going on here. We just have to understand what we're trying to achieve. As we put these skewers in, we want some of them to ride as close as possible to the center spit so that it keeps the birds from rotating on the spit. But we also are trying to pin the legs and the wings to the body so that they don't burn if they kind of hang loose there. We're also using these skewers to do things like hold on the bacon, the larding of the birds. So they're being used in a lot of different purposes or uses. We can also use the skewer as a little tiny spit. And here we'll put some just regular pieces of beef on to our skewer, and we will place it behind the fire so that these little pieces of meat can roast. The birds are off of the fire, and this whole process, the smell has been wonderful. It definitely took much longer than it would if we would just pop these little guys in the oven. But the difference is amazing, isn't it? I mean, you can just tell by the way they look and the smoke that they naturally would get even in the 18th century. You know, the whole process is one that just plain takes time. This probably is 4 or 5 times longer than if you were doing them in the oven. But what comes out is so much more. Let's go ahead and give this a try. I'm gonna go ahead and try the one that had the larded bacon over the top, because you know that's gonna be the one that's better. So this really turned out great. It's not tough at all. The bacon flavor's in there. It did great things with the skin. I love how this worked out, even with the most primitive cooking equipment ever. I would do it again any day. This is so